In this video, I'm going to demonstrate how I made this cupcake holder. It's shaped like an oven. I used buttons for the burners, and if you open it up, it has a little message on the cupcake holder. This is actually a fake cupcake. And it says made with love. You can make one of these ovens out of one piece of 12 by 12 cardstock. I went ahead and cut out all my pieces. And I have all of the step-by-step instructions and measurements on my website, which I will post a link to in the description of this video. I have a 4-inch by 12-inch piece of cardstock. I'm going to score it. I've actually already scored this, but I'm going to score it at 1/2 inches, 11.5 inches, also at 4 inches, and 8 inches, and then I'm going to turn it 90 degrees and just score one of the long sides at 1/2 inch. And then for this piece, I'm going to take any square punch will do, but I'm taking my 1-inch square punch from Stampin'. So it looks like this. For both the 4-inch by 7-inch piece and the 4-inch by 8-inch piece, I'm going to score from one end at 3.5 inches. For the 4-inch by 1.5 inches, I'm going to score just at 1/2 inch. For the 4 by 7 and 4 by 8 inch pieces of cardstock, I'm using the Pop & Cuts card base die. On the 4 by 7 piece, it's only 4 inches wide instead of the typical 4.25 inch wide that this die usually cuts. So I'm going to just center it in the die, and I'm going to make sure that the top gets cut all the way, because that's really just what I want, is just the top. And by the top I mean the curvy side of the die. So I'm going to place a cutting pad on the bottom and a cutting pad on the top, and then I'm going to run it through my big shot. And it's only cutting the top, so I'm not going to take the time to go all the way through. For the 4 by 8 inch piece, this score line is 3.5 inches from the bottom. I'm going to cut the side that is farthest from the score line. For the 4.25 by 1 inch piece, I'm going to place it at the other end of the die just to cut the notches for the oven door to fit into. Now that I have all my pieces cut and scored, I'm going to take my piece of 3.25 by 10 3/4 inch designer series paper, and I'm going to just round the corners with Stampin' Up's 3/16 inch corner punch. And this is going to be the top and the sides of the oven. And what I did is I just focused on adhering the middle part first and then folding down the sides. And now I'm centering the DSP designer series paper on it. Now I'm going to make my folds, and I'm going to make sure my folds are crisp. But if you put adhesive on all 3 sides before you fold, then sometimes it can stretch the DSP a little bit. Now you want to use sticky strip on the tabs here. Okay, so I have sticky strip, 5 pieces there, and now this will be the back and the front of the oven here. So I'm going to adhere these 2 pieces together, making sure that the curvy sides are on the top and the bottom. Now I'll work on the window for the front of the oven. I am embossing with white embossing powder. So this is the front of my oven. So I'm going to turn it over. I'm using my Embossing Buddy to make sure that embossing powder doesn't stick on any places I don't want it to. And I'm using VersaMark. And I'm going to stamp it right in the center. I'm going to put scratch paper underneath. And I have my white embossing powder. Now that I have my embossed circle for the front of the oven, I'm going to use my circle framelits. And I'm using the 4th from the smallest, and I'm just going to center it over my embossed circle. I'm using my magnetic platform, and I have a cutting pad on top of that. I have my circle framelit centered over my embossed circle, and I'm just going to put another cutting pad on top and run it through. At this point, you can apply your window on the front if you'd like, but I like to cover the inside of my oven just to give it a more finished look. I like to put a piece of Whisper white cardstock on the inside, using the 3/16 inch corner rounder again. I'm using some temporary adhesive to hold down this piece so that I can trace where I want the circle from the other side. And I'll hold that in place. And I'm taking one circle smaller, which is the 3rd from the smallest circle in the framelits, and I'm going to trace a smaller circle because I'm using a 1 3/4 inch punch, and it doesn't reach all the way inside. So I'd like to use it like this, but I can't push it far enough in. So I just traced a circle there, and now I can remove that, and now I can go ahead and punch my circle out, and I can center it. So now I can adhere this down with permanent adhesive. And my window, and I'm using glue dots to adhere the window down. And this window sheet is from the Quatrefancy Designer Series paper. Okay, so now I can put my backing down. I want to make sure that I have it centered in the window also. This part's kind of tricky because you also want it level on this side, centered. Okay, I think that's pretty good. Now I'm going to work on adhering the sides of my oven here. I just peeled the backing off of this piece of sticky strip, basically the bottom tabs, are the only ones that I'm going to take off. And I'm going to adhere this down, kind of figuring out where I want to place it. You need to make sure that your oven is straight so that when you close it, it's not lopsided. So I'm just kind of lining it up with the bottom of the other piece. And I'm closing it to make sure that it's straight. We can go ahead and start working on the closure, which is going to be this piece that's going to let us close it. So this piece is just for allowing us to have something to stick this to. Okay, so now I'm going to put sticky strip on this smaller side on the other side of the score line. And I'm rounding the corners of the bottom here. Adhere it to the inside top of our oven now. And you just want it to be right on the edge. You want that score line to be right on the edge of the top. Okay, so I rounded the other two corners on this piece also. So I'm going to adhere it there, but I want to make sure that when I close my oven, these tabs are going to be able to reach. So I'm placing this piece on top of these. I don't know what you call them. And I'm going to center it also, because you can move it around from side to side a bit, but I want to make it look centered. So just right about there. So now I'm going to put on the inside here. So now I'm just covering my oven, making sure that the sides are straight and the oven is square. And now I can reach inside and adhere that more securely. So now we have our oven front. And I don't know if you can see this, but maybe if I take a piece of white paper, there is some cardstock that is hanging down a little bit. It probably doesn't matter too much, but I just like to take my 1 3/4 inch circle punch. So I'm just going to punch just part of it out so that that doesn't hang down. So now when I close my oven, you can see that it's not hanging down. Okay, so now I can go ahead and adhere the back of my oven. I'm going to just go ahead and carefully close the back of my oven, making sure that it's still square. Okay, and I can open my oven now, and I can press down on the sticky strip from the inside. Okay, you can use buttons to adhere to the back, and also I use candy dots. I had a workshop yesterday, so I cut just the matching colors to make it easy for people. So I could stick down a couple of these self-adhesive candy dots to make the control panel on the back of the oven. I'll just do one and I'll show you my finished one here. There's also this inside piece which I'm going to show you how to make. It's basically the holder for the cupcake.